yeah, just wanted to say thanks to the community for being present, and we're really happy to host. And thanks also to Autodesk for supplying our food and beverage, especially the beer. Thank you. So, we'll kick it off. Dennis, you want to get us started? And,
sure.
I'll be around. I can help pass around mics and just facilitate during the Q&A and discussion portion. So if it looks like you're not getting the attention you deserve and you need some amplification, come to me. Cool. Thank you. All right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Saris. I'm going to actually ask Fran here to speak a little bit first about the Pipeline Developers Meetup. Some of you guys this may be your first time here, and she's a much better person to introduce this event. So, Fran?
I'm Fran Zandanello Benjamin. Thank you all for coming. Tran and I and Dane Bettis started this group back in about 2013. And these meetings are for us to talk about whatever concerns things in the pipeline. So tonight's topic is multi-site workflows. I want to thank Autodesk and Netflix for their sponsorship, and also Dennis for putting this meeting together, and everybody who volunteered to help make this meeting happen. Thank you. And then I'm also going to do one last plug. I'm working on a pipeline conference for July 28th. The tickets should go up soon, within the next week and a half, I think. We're just nailing down the last few set of speakers, but it's an all-day, one-track conference. And the format will be somewhat similar to this format, with time for breakout discussion and lots of good food. Oh yeah, it's here in LA. It's going to be in Little Tokyo. So yeah, we have the location and we're all set up.
It's right before SIGGRAPH, so just 2 days before the opening.
It is the same day that SIGGRAPH starts.
There you go. Same day that SIGGRAPH starts. So we would love, those of you who are multi-facility, who have other facilities around the world, and people coming in from the rest of the world, definitely check out. And there is a website, I believe, or is it better to Google it right now?
Yeah, thepipelineconference.com. But there's not that much on it right now. So, yeah.
Does it have the dates yet?
It does have the date. Yeah.
Perfect. Save the date.
Save the date, sign up to find out, like if you join our newsletter, then you'll get notified when it becomes live. Because space is limited. Space is limited, so yeah, signing up early is good.
Thank you, Fran. All right, so thank you guys all very much for coming. I'm going to do my best to town hall this. And I think this is a topic that is kind of near and dear to my heart, just because I've been working in pipeline now for a number of years, and dealing with how you get files and workflows across different buildings and to people in different places is, I think, a major problem that has not been well solved, although it's certainly seen some amazing build-outs of ways to solve that problem. And it may be that some of you here tonight work at a facility that have solved this and have it. And I think the rest of us would love to hear that. And for those of you who have little pieces, it's oh, I have this and I have this, I've had this. That's kind of the kinds of things we want to know. Let me introduce myself real quick. So my name is Den Saris. I work for a company called the Redesign Group, and we have a few people here from Redesign. Thank you very much. Laura and Thomas, I think, is here somewhere. We're a tech consulting company. I'm not here to plug Redesign, but we are involved in this particular space in terms of dealing with pipeline. I'm the director of software services, and we are building a pipeline. So part of what we're trying to do is create a pipeline that can be installed at anybody's facility, and it needs to be able to work across multiple facilities. So I'm also here in some extent to pick all your brains for my own selfish personal reasons, but then I can sell my pipeline back to you later. So there we go. But in the immediate, I think the goal here tonight is to just see if we can open up discussion about these particular topics. We're going to have a couple of presentations, and then we'll have a lot of talking. So for the presentation-wise, Tanaz from Shotgun will be talking about well, I'm not sure exactly, but parts of Shotgun that are specifically focused on multi-facility workflow. Fran will be talking about, where did you go, Fran? Oh, there you are. How did that happen? The invisible lady. Fran will be talking about how the mill is playing with that right now. And let's see, who else is talking tonight? Who am I missing? I am missing somebody. Well, thank you. I've forgotten. Tony. I'm sorry. I'm going to do this a lot because I'm really bad with names. Tony from Stargate will hopefully chip in a little bit to talk about how things are at Stargate. But I have one more presenter. Why am I missing somebody? Oh, that's right. Laurent will be here. We'll be talking from Pixit. And Pixit has an interesting solution to this. They're a hardware company, but they have better to have him explain it. They are a workflow company that builds middleware on top of storage. And that middleware has some interesting solutions to solve these problems. So we selfishly, we happen to like their stuff. And so that's why I asked them here tonight. But more selfishly, they're the first hardware company that I've talked to. And I don't know about the rest of you, but in the last couple of years, I've been at NAB and talking to hardware companies. They're the first ones that felt like they actually understood pipeline and were interested in the fact that, from my point of view, I believe that most of the problems that we're dealing with are pipeline problems and that the IT should get out of the way. And so part of what I'm hoping for in the future is to kind of have a place where we can define what files and what workflow needs to live where, whether that's in the cloud or whether that's locally somewhere on anybody's system. And these guys, among some other companies, are actually tackling that exact thing. And I think you'll find what he has to say very interesting on the subject. Just to kind of open things up a little bit, if you don't mind me asking some questions of people who are here, a couple of quick polls. Of the people here, who work in VFX? Okay, so most everybody. Animation? Great. Games? Awesome. Sound? And other post-production, editorial? Awesome. Who has a multi-facility workflow at this point? All right, most everybody. Of those people who didn't raise your hand, are you looking at maybe needing one at some time in the future? All right, so yes, okay, so maybe at least one person is. For those of you who have it, how many of you are happy with it? Awesome, so we'll call on you a lot. All right, whose stuff breaks if you open it in another facility? Anybody? Ish? Like if you just grab a file off of another server from one of the other facilities and open it in yours, does it just work? That's great. That's huge. That is like step one, right? I'm curious, how many people here are working where their internet on their local computers is blocked? Okay, so that's a lot. For those who raise their hand, raise your hand if that's a severe impact on your pipeline. That's great, that's good. Who's integrating cloud storage? Cool. Anybody integrating cloud workstations? Couple, that's cool. Anybody using a single namespace across facilities? Like truly a single namespace? Okay. For those of you who don't, how many of you, or let's put it this way, who has basically a synced namespace, like the replicated namespace across multiple facilities? Okay. Is there anybody whose namespace is different between their facilities? Okay. Let's see here. Who has, or does anybody here have remote teams working without like a central storage? So a good example would be, or not central storage, without a central team. So meaning like you're on a production and you're just, there's just 4 guys sitting in a production office. Anybody like that? Okay. So interesting pipeline challenge there. Let's see here. Does anybody use real-time communication regularly between facilities? So anything from video to chat? Okay, good. how do I put this? Does anybody manage their code beyond syncing between facilities? So meaning you've got sort of a central code storage and it's unique for each facility, but they can all pull from that central storage. Or does everybody, yes? Yeah? Okay. Does everybody else sync their code across the various facilities? Yeah, so meaning like something where you can truly, each facility can have its own code set, but you've got a way of managing it from above. Okay. Let's see here. So the next question is, who has different workflows at different facilities? And of those who have different workflows at different facilities, how many of you wish that you had the same workflow at different facilities? Who has pipeline teams spread across different facilities, all working on the same stuff? Interesting. And for those of you who do, if it works well, raise your hand. Cool. All right, internet speeds. Does anybody here, their facility have internet speeds of less than a gigabit? Are a gigabit? 1 to 10 gigabits? Above 10 gigabits? Above 40 gigabits? Maybe Netflix is probably the only one here. Who has facilities with departments that are dedicated in specific facilities? So meaning you create a bottleneck because only that one facility can do that one thing. So meaning you only can do roto in one facility, or you only do tracking in one facility, something like that. Interesting. How many of you who use outsource integrate your outsource companies closely to your pipeline? So more than just maybe having an ingest, but actually give outsource maybe even copies of your code, or maybe have them actually work inside your pipeline? Interesting. Who has supervisors working in a different facility than the project that they're supervising? All right, so we have a lot of interesting problems here. And so the reason I ask some of those questions is because I feel like there's more than just technical problems that we're trying to solve. That what our job is to help, let me ask this question. How many of you think that our job is manufacturing? Interesting, yeah. And how many of you think that we're creating art or craft? Maybe both, right? And one of the things that I find interesting from at least from my point of view, has been this problem of our manufacturers are working, our bots, our whatever metaphor you like, our craftspeople who are standing at the line are artists. And so there's problems that relate to the fact that they're artists, the herding cats problem. And so some of us are trying to design pipelines that work well to help cats herd, right? But there's also these other issues that I think the multi-facility problem has made better, and there's some that's made worse. And I'd love tonight to kind of have people talk a little bit about some of those things that are better and some of those things that are worse from that point of view of us trying to help artists do their best work. And I think that things like having supervisors in other facilities. I used to work at Stereo D, and they moved their pretty much all their artists overseas, or out of the local facility. So LA had their central, the central teams that met with the clients and that did all of the supervision. And then they had a team of artists in Toronto and a team of artists in India, and they're all fantastic artists. But I saw a lot of problems arise from the fact that the artists and the supervisors are not in the same place. And so there's this interpretation problem that you get when you've got a supervisor who's talking to a lead and a lead that's talking to an artist. And sometimes having a supervisor who can interact directly with our artists can help break that. But I'm curious, for those of you who are working that way, what's working? Those of you who have the supervisors in another facility, if it does work, why does it work? What are you doing differently maybe? Or maybe that you're doing the same and it's just that you're doing something else that helps change that. The culture between facilities. Here's another question. How many of you feel like the culture between different facilities is really different? how many of you feel like you've got multiple facilities and they're really different companies? And that's an interesting problem because we're often designing for these different facilities. I have a client who has a facility in another country and a facility here in LA, and we're designing a pipeline for them, and I spoke to the supervisors, I'm sure you guys all do the same thing. Before I build a pipeline, I interview all of the stakeholders that I can at all of the locations and kind of try to get a sense of what's going on. And one thing I discovered was that they both use completely different workflows. And it comes from the fact that they were founded by different people who had different philosophies. And here I am, I have to design a pipeline that'll work for both of these companies. And it's like, but they really are different companies. So how do we solve the problem of designing a pipeline that'll work for a group that wants pipeline A and a group that wants pipeline B? It's not an easy thing to solve. And I'm curious if those of you who are experiencing that yourself, how many of you have had that? So why don't we begin with the presentations? So Tanaz, if you don't mind jumping in.
Hello, my name is Tanaz. I work at Shotgun. I'm going to talk today about our multi-location workflows with our Pipeline Toolkit. A quick background on me, I come from Pipeline TV world. I was at DreamWorks Animation for about 9 years. Before that, I was at Meetup as Pipeline TV for about 3 years, and now I've been at Shotgun for about 3 years. We have a lot to cover in a short period of time, so I'm going to jump in. I guess the first question, let's figure out how to do this, is what even is Toolkit? So Toolkit, if you're not familiar with it, is Shotgun's pipeline offering. It consists of integrations within software that artists already use through a series of apps. Artists can publish their work, they can create reviewable media, they can load in their colleagues' upstream publishes, and they can manage their work files and folder structure and file naming and all that, and much more. So classically, Toolkit, the way Toolkit was set up kind of mirrored the common workflows at the time that it was designed. Many artists on a single shared network storage would share the same pipeline and typically in the same geographic location as well. Today, the geography of crews is very different from what that looks like. Kind of the things that Dennis touched on. You might have different offices that have, different offices within the same studio in different geographic locations. You might have client-vendor relationships. You might have different vendors that are sharing assets or working on common assets. And you might even have individual remote artists that are working from home or from the local cafe. So this was a challenge for us that we needed to come up with a solution for. Before we do talk about that solution though, just a quick disclaimer. When we're talking here about distributing pipelines across locations, in this case we're referring to tool distribution, not file distribution. In other words, we're getting artists the pipeline tools that they need and the workflows defined by these interconnected tools. The toolkit offering doesn't really deal with file transfer or file upload or all of that. That's sort of a piece that can be extended, but we're talking about distributing the pipeline itself. Okay, so what is that solution? Basically, in broad strokes, Toolkit enables a just-in-time pipeline distribution mechanism via your Shotgun site itself. So the first thing to talk about is that what is a pipeline configuration? We talk about pipeline configurations a lot in the Toolkit world. Basically, a pipeline configuration describes the apps that an artist is using within their content creation packages, like Maya, Houdini, After Effects, Unreal, whatever it may be, as well as the settings for each of the apps, which define the specific workflows. The configurations are context-aware, so you can have different workflows, for example, for artists working on assets and artists working on shots. You can go even more granular than that and have like department-specific workflows or whatever, sky's the limit as far as customization. But what it comes down to is that the pipeline config gives your pipeline TV a single place to control the workflows that all artists will see. So within our pipeline configuration, one thing that we do is we support locations from which apps can be referenced. Typically, the apps, the code, the payload, isn't part of the configuration itself, but rather you can refer to a place that you can pull it from, and that gives you another level of flexibility. You can have like an app store location where it's coming from the Toolkit App Store. It's just a classic, untouched default Toolkit app that you're pulling from us at a specific version. You can, much louder. You can pull from a Git repository, either one of your own or one that like some community member has shared something that you guys want to use. Or you can point to a path on disk. And then when, in that classic setup, when the pipeline TD or admin or whoever it is installs the config on the network file storage, all of the required apps and other tools are downloaded based on these locations that are specified in your config, and they're made available to artists from there. Which, that works great if everyone's in the same place, but the addition of other physical studio locations created a management problem. So we kind of put our thinking caps on and came to the realization that Toolkit supports all these different locations that apps can be referenced from. Why can't we bring in an entire config from some location? And if artists have to authenticate with Shotgun anyway, why not just store the config in Shotgun? So in addition to the App Store, the Git repository, or local file storage locations, we added another one, which is the Shotgun site itself. So now that is a valid payload location. So what you can do is store an entire pipeline configuration inside of your Shotgun site. Effectively, if someone has access to your Shotgun site, and that can be any of those scenarios, a remote artist or a vendor, or whoever it is, if they have access to Shotgun, they have access to your pipeline. So what does it look like in practice? The idea is basically so that the pipeline TD who is somewhere curates your configuration, that's the person on the phone, and uploads it to the Shotgun site. Then throughout wherever people are working, as artists launch their content creation software, a lookup is performed in Shotgun to determine the appropriate config. Once it's identified based on the user and the project they're working on, it's downloaded to the artist's machine. And that's the distributed piece. Every artist has a local copy of the pipeline configuration, rather than pulling it from the same location on disk. From then on, whenever there's changes made to the uploaded config, artists will receive those updates automatically when they launch their software. The result is a just-in-time pipeline that can be curated and distributed from anywhere and used by artists in any location, as long as they have access to the Shotgun sites. So that's the end of my slides, but I wanted to show you guys what this kind of looks like. Let's see if I can get this right. So just to give you an idea of what this looks like in practice, it's a little tiny, but what you're looking at is the pipeline a list of pipeline configuration entities in a Shotgun site. You can see that the last three have something in the uploaded config field. Those three have a zip file of the pipeline configuration uploaded to their Shotgun site. Thank you, Dennis. So basically that's the first step. It's just uploading a zipped copy of your config with all of your modifications or whatever you've done to it to your Shotgun site. From there, you launch, any artist, anywhere, launches, we have an executable app that kind of launches software in a Shotgun-aware way. So the artist launches, and this kind of comes into play. Most of you if you are familiar with this workflow or familiar with Shotgun Desktop, I want to show you kind of the new hotness, which is an executable app that kind of takes that a step further, and that is Shotgun Create. So we have our artist here. She would open Shotgun Create. She has a list of, I'm not going to move her through it. Oh, can I even do this? It's on a different screen. Let's see how this goes, guys. Let me find my mouse. So basically, she has a list of all her tasks. On each one, there is a little guy. So which gives you your list of all the things that you can launch. These launchers are configurable. You can fall back on default standard locations. You can put in whatever software you want. You can actually customize the launch process so that at lunchtime, if there's environment that needs to be set, if there are whatever else that you need to happen at lunchtime, it can happen. Let's test my mouse skills here. Then it'll do it. And then it launches mine for you, and likely it will open on this desktop. Let's see how it goes. Yes?
Does Shotgun Create need Shotgun Desktop to pull the config?
No, it has, so basically, for you, Scott, I'll mention that there's another engine, there's a TK Desktop 2 engine, so you configure that and it all just works. You don't need, it's basically one or the other. Okay, so let me see if I can pull mine over. This is going to be real challenging, guys. I'm not good at this remote mouse situation. The first thing that you can see is that on the right, there's a Shotgun panel, and that is, it already knows what task you're working on, it knows who you are, and whatever you do is already context aware. And then the other piece of it, and I'm asking him, bring on the publish guy, is, we can do this a little bit. Yeah. The other piece of it is apps like this one. So you pull that down from the shotgun menu up at the top, and essentially this is where artists, like when they're ready to go, will publish their work. Again, by default, this isn't doing any sort of file management. It's tracking the publish in Shotgun so that artists know that it's available and so that you can use that information. But this is like a plugin-based architecture, so you could add plugins that do whatever. If you want to initiate a file transfer at publish time, if you want to do a cloud upload at publish time, if you want some sort of delivery from a vendor at publish time, whatever. There's a question, yes.
Yeah, so if you had a plugin that said did some sort of file synchronization, do you have a mechanism for distributing and installing that?
That is part of your pipeline configuration. So this mechanism that I just showed you, correct.
The code that would be
So
required.
there's two pieces to that. There's kind of two levels of customization, or I'll say there's three levels of customization. One is configuration settings. One is there's this idea of hooks. So all of our apps are written in such a way that like places that we know that people will typically customize are pulled out into separate, small, simple Python files that are designed for customization. That way, you don't have to fork off your copy of the app, you can customize it and still get our updates. So in a case like that, yeah, the hook is included in the pipeline, it's part of the pipeline configuration. As far as the code, you have some options. As far as an app, for example, you have some options. You can bundle it in with your pipeline configuration and know that it'll get large. That's just, one of the pros and cons that gives away. The other is that, again, those location descriptors that I showed in the first place tell it where to pull an app from. So you could have it pull it from a Git repo. You could actually upload an app to your Shotgun site the same way that you upload a pipeline configuration and use your Shotgun site as an app store. That workflow, I think there's some people here who are using it, but it's a little, enter at your own risk right now. It's not entirely clean, but it's massively doable and quite powerful. So that's one of the things that you can do. So that's the publish, and that's pretty much it as far as this piece of it. I do want to take another second and show you guys that Create quickly is more than just a launcher, like desktop was. It's actually like a fully functional review tool. I will be hard pressed to do this with the mouse. Let's see. But I'll mention that basically our artist here, she has a running feed of kind of a back and forth with whoever is reviewing her work. She can upload versions, she can add notes, she can send it to be used for review, and then the reviewer, in their own right, has this kind of panel where it's an inbox, where they can actually view the media right in here. They can add annotations, they can add notes, and send it along. So when we're talking about multi-facility workflows, there's something really great about if you're working across time zones and in real-time review is challenging, you can have this back and forth asynchronously that is pretty awesome. So.
Is the interface for Shotgun Create web-based like it is the Shotgun integration is in RV?
I don't know. Do you know, Jen? Or what?
Right, but it's not a QT, it's all web widgets.
I'm not sure. We would have to get back to that.
I have heard a rumor that is built around web widgets running inside a Qt framework, but that was just a rumor. I don't know.
QT web.
We'll find out. So that's all I have. I don't know if you want to do questions now or at the end.
No, thank you. Thank you, Tanaz. Yes, thank you. And I actually would love to kind of hold questions because what I'd love to do is kind of get through the presentations as kind of ways to open us up to questions and then throw it out and answer a lot of these. Where did Laurent go? There you are. Are you ready do you mind doing a little talking about Pixit? Did you want to put up a slide?
Yeah, a few slides I hope will be relevant.
Awesome. While he's putting up his slides, let me, I can do a little cover. She brought up a couple of interesting questions that I think are worth asking. How many people here are using Shotgun and Shotgun Toolkit in order to manage their pipelines? For those of you who are, how many of you are using web-based descriptors or something similar to distribute code so that you don't have to be connected to a central repository? Okay. Is anybody doing something similar with something other than Shotgun, around F-Track or any other system that has a, for a way to distribute code? Is anybody using Res? Yeah. Okay. Is anybody using it in such a way that you can distribute it over the internet without having to be connected to your central server? Okay. Does anybody have their central server maybe cloud-based? Okay, cool.